Watch this. No way!
You know when you're getting old, when you've got to make a noise to get in and out of a chair? I think that's the sign.
36.
Old. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Thomas. Been a while since we caught up on the pod, actually.
Yeah, we just had a little look, and we actually got bored looking back through the episodes to see when we last did a pod together. Just sat down having a chat about nonsense. It was quite a while ago, but then we've had quite a Dutch heavy kind of few weeks.
Well, I'd say it's been like a pretty fast start. Like, feels like it's been a good start to the year on the jar front, wouldn't you?
Well,
all jokes aside, we've worked
hard.
Yet. No, we've hit every Tuesday. We've had bonus pods on Thursdays or Fridays. You've done very well on the films. Without doing too much backslapping, it feels like it's been a good start. But we haven't really caught up much on the pod, so I thought it'd be useful to
Don't forget we released the events the other day,
which we will come on to. Just seen the premiere of Royal Hague film.
We just had a little recording this. This is going to go out tomorrow. So this evening, as you listen to this evening, if you listen to it on the day it's released, if
correct,
not, why aren't you listening to it on the day it's released? On Tuesday, the 14th of February, we're releasing Noordwijk, which is the penultimate course film, and then the week after will be Den Haag, Koninklijke Haagse.
Harsh. I'd say it's Koninklijke Haagse.
Well, I don't pronounce
anyway, so that's next Tuesday, and then we put the Dutch series to bed with Tour Film Part 2, the Tuesday after, 28th of Feb.
But just in case you have been enjoying the films, it doesn't end there, because we've got a couple more in the can that will be coming out shortly after that.
Have you found the process, before we get into the pod, like, you know, people will probably be curious to hear how you've got on with the
it's interesting
editing process?
Because when we had DJ Pyhaski on the pod, I pretty much was maybe a month into the process of editing, and I was in the dungeon. I wasn't happy. Which is probably why my line of questioning was like, you know, how do you get on with it, and did you enjoy it? And he talked about, you know, his journey with it. We finished that. We pretty much wrapped that filming series on pretty much the 31st of October, 30th of October, something like that. It is now the 13th of February, and I've only just finished it. So it's a long process.
You haven't been flat out on it, but I mean, it's like always there, right? Because there's a workflow. Like, you know, you need the notes and the writings, and
I must add, like you, Bruce,
there is a workflow. No, I'm not suggesting I've done the work on this, but there is a workflow to it. So you can only work on it when you get the copy, right?
Yeah. So, you know, for those of you that have been bored enough to get stuck in with all of it, I mean, there's been tour diaries, written articles to go with this. We've done micropods to go with it as well. So there's been a lot of stuff that's wrapped around it. And then we've got for those of you who are interested in how we do these films, Sam and Bruce write the narrations, which must take hours, I must admit. They must take a long time to...
I particularly didn't like it when you remove words like Leviathan and say I've used it out of context.
I still think you have.
When I've used it exactly within the context.
Spoiler alert, it's in the Hague film, but I'm pretty sure Leviathan is not an adjective.
Without doing too much backslapping, the Holland series has been good, but also with the time of reflecting back on it, watching the films back, it's like, yeah, God, wow, what a trip, and how much breadth and diversity.
I think the films are a weird one, because I think I've always filmed like holidays and stuff. I'm that geek. I'm that guy. I certainly did a lot more of it 10, 15 years ago. You know, that's how I kind of got into it. I was just film ski trips and holidays and all sorts of things like that. And I've always found that it's enabled me to remember it better. I think I've got quite a poor memory anyway, but you know,
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Very poor memory.
My favourite one was at our second golf day, where we went over and introduced yourself to someone that was there on the first one.
There were half a dozen people who were there on the first one. The running joke within Cookie Jar is Sam says, "Oh, we're going to go meet blah," and I'm like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "I told you met him like 7 times. Can you just fucking remember his name?" So, no, I got a very poor memory. And I actually think, it's it's a way that it helps me remember the things that I've done. And I look back certainly at The Hague today. Watched that back with you just now. Just finished editing it. And you're just like, I don't think, even at the time, I realised how epic that land was.
Yeah.
How gargantuan it is.
Yeah.
I kind of forgotten. It's like, they say you can't feel pain. Or you can't remember pain. I kind of like, the pain of walking up and down those hills, I'd kind of forgotten how big they were. And then looking back on it now, it's like, Christ, that place is so big. So
the courses look so
vast.
different, don't they? Question: if you were a YouTuber and you were James Robinson and you were doing a film a day,
I think I'd probably explode.
That's seriously hard graft, isn't it?
Yeah. There's, all the guys.
You can always skip a little bit on a few bits, and you can be a bit more. I think, did DJ use the term run and gun, which I think is just like a bit more sort of trigger happy on the camera and a bit more rough and ready?
Run and gun is a style of unscripted filming. So it's like, you film what you see. That's run and gun. So
but if you're doing daily vlogs on YouTube,
yes.
that is absurdly difficult.
I mean, I don't know how these the people that do it full time on YouTube, I don't know if they're set up where they've got editors and videographers with them, and I notice a lot of them carry tripods, so they do a bit of their own filming at least. But no, it's regardless of the quality that's being put out, which isn't what we're talking about, the fact that they can go out, they can film, they need to edit, just the stuff that goes around it, the copy,
just the artwork alone,
the copy, the artwork,
it's like, that's a ton of work.
It just takes time. Like it is. They earn every penny they get on those things because it's graft.
It's hard craft, particularly if you're really like digging away at it.
It is. Fair play to anyone who's willing to stick at it. There's lots of people that have tried, and you kind of they disappear after a little while.
Could you go to some daily vlogs to really crank up the algo on YouTube for us?
I could do. I could, it would be utter dross. Like, it would be absolutely awful. It'd be me looking into a camera going, "You want to see how far I can hit my 7? Like, oh, duffed it again." No, but
how's your golf been in the off season then? So we spoke
fairly tragic
down at Rye when we last recorded the pod. Obviously, I've spoken a lot in between then.
Yeah, I think we have spoken in the last 5 months.
For the benefit of our listeners, how's your golf going? Where's it at right now? We played for a history book down at Walton Heath.
By the way, we should touch on this. This is something we always do, if we can. We're in a very fortunate situation that we go down to clubs who are expecting us sometimes, and they say, "Oh, would you like a history book?" And we're very lucky.
I love the history
it.
books. I love the club histories.
Like in Goswick, I bought the history book.
Yes,
over the bar. You can lots of these places have got their centenary books or their 125, 150 books. If any history book. And if we can, we tend to buy one copy or procure a copy, and then we play for it, which invariably...
For clarity,
Sam's collection of books is a lot better than my collection of books. So I don't win all that often. But yeah, we did. Down at Walton Heath, which is where we were.
Which was an insanely nice club history and a brilliant day, and probably more to follow on Walton Heath in due course. But had a great day down there, and you were absolutely... smoking it.
I actually think
probably only a couple over par.
Yeah, and I think I'd lipped out like a good 2 or 3 times as well.
There was barely any greens missed,
and the neg of the
century, whole thing was just really tidy. Like I noticed it.
The neg of the century. We walked off. You're like, "Are you like 3 over?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so." And you're like, "That was the most unimpressive golf I've ever seen you play."
But it was so unspectacular. Like you look at any great golfer, and great players make it look effortless. I think if I'm scoring well, I feel like, you can see the energy coming off me at every given moment. Whereas I think when you really are playing well, look to you that day, it's like, I'm not really doing anything different. it doesn't look like the swing's that different, but it doesn't look like you're trying hard, but it's just effortlessly within control. Massive
I
difference
don't think it was
from a few
effortlessly in
weeks
control.
ago.
I think what there was, there was a golfer at Blackwell who passed away way before his time. He was in his 50s when he went, and his name was Paul Scarrett. He was an outstanding golfer at Blackwell, and he said to Bruce once, I believe, if you want to play good golf, you've got to be bored on the golf course. You just got to hit shots you can play to places you can play it, middle of the greens, 2-putt, walk on, just score. And I think that day, for whatever reason, I hit quite a few fairways, I hit quite a few greens, didn't really make many 1-putts, didn't make any 3-putts, and it kind of that'd get it done.
Working
really.
on anything?
Not snap hooking the ball. I find off seasons quite difficult. I don't know how you find. You've been playing golf since you were quite young, so do you find?
I play all year round.
Yeah, but do you find it's like if you have like a month off that affects your swing?
Not really. I wouldn't say. What I will say is timing will go, and feel from inside 100 yards that will go big time. I mean, feel's not
Is
there.
that
from
like
inside.
a big thing for you? Like,
Well,
the
like
100 yards and in.
Well, I go from having barely any feel from 100 yards and in to having absolutely none. Like, I mean, it's just
my scales
there's
are
none.
barely noticeable, and
like my ability to control pace with a wedge is like a light switch. It's like on or off entirely. There's no in between. There's no dimmer. But I don't really like practicing. I don't get anything out of the art of practicing. I like hitting golf shots. But I do that I can do that on the golf course. I hate it. It's the least constructive thing I can do, I think, anyway. The more and more I've tried to connect with hitting balls on a range, the more it's just ruined my game anyway. It never does anything. Like, maybe you can sort of like do it for half an hour and you might find something if you're in a real dark spot. But it's just personal preference, isn't it? It just doesn't do it for me. But I did make a conscious decision at the start of the year. I'm fed up of being or saying I'm a shit chipper or I'm a shit, wedge player.
The VJ Singh, address me as the best putter in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought if I practice this year, I'm only, because I don't want to play the temporary greens, and we've had a couple of frosty days, so I thought, well, I'll go up and hit a few wedges. And I've only practiced hitting the ball under 100 yards. I've not hit one shot in practice above 100.
Yeah, but you play the hole though.
No, just on practice range.
Oh,
but just
right, okay.
literally turf range, just nipping loads of little wedge shots under 100 yards. Unbelievable difference. Like night and day. Confidence then stood over one from 70 yards was just like totally different.
I found what I'm trying to do, and I haven't had the opportunity to do it all that much, I must say, is before I go out, I try and hit a couple of shots that are 60 yards with a 54, which I find my first few attempts, whenever I try this, I hit it way longer, because I think what I think is like a half swing is I'm actually going as fast as I can.
It's really
There's no
hard to take it off.
Yeah, so I think if I can hit a few shots with a 54 at like 60 yards, I feel like I'm ready to go play golf.
Well, I think it's one thing I noticed. It's really, really good for your ball striking as well. So if you're playing, I was sort of going through this drill of being like, well, I'll just hit half a dozen 54-degree shots, 70 yards, and then I might hit half a dozen 50-degree wedges, 50 yards, and just keep trying to take stuff off it. Hogan always said, didn't he? Build it small. Feel like he say, I think Ayres said it on the pod, didn't he? He felt like he could hit a 10-yard chip flat out because he could build it small, which I think there's a bit of truth in that. And then trying to hit the high ones and the low ones. But I noticed that just doing it over and over, even though I was never hitting anything flat out, the ball striking was all of a sudden like really, really good, and it was just nice and shallow. But I mean, look, I'm not a mad fan of the winter grind. It's lovely getting out and playing. I hate not playing golf. I don't really mind playing in cold or even slightly wet weather.
But I think to hit to build on what you said, I think to hit 60-yard, 50-yard shots or whatever, not only have you got to be able to get your tempo right, which gets the feel good, but you have to find the centre of the face.
Yeah.
I think that's really important because otherwise you're just nowhere near
Which is where that like preoccupation of like how much am I going to give this, or if you're thinking distance, then you just forget strike. Whereas when you stand over, for me anyway, when I stand over a 7-iron, because I've clubbed for a certain yardage, I'm not really thinking distance. I'm just thinking strike.
Because you've already factored in the distance.
Because I'm thinking, well, if I just hit this exactly how I want to hit this, and I strike it properly, that's the eventual outcome. Right. Whereas I feel like I'm standing there with a 54 degree thinking this could go 105 yards, or it could go 4 yards if it goes really bad. And that's a pickle.
How's your golf been this winter?
Well, I sort of touched on it there, really. Always worrying when you go through a few spells of hitting it really good in January. You never want to peak in January.
It's like birdie in the first hole, isn't it? It's like the only way down.
I had a really good spell for a few weeks. Like we played Hollingwell, didn't we? We played for the All Woodley history book there. You know, and that was like a day where I felt like I was just knocking pins out, and it's like, I need this in June.
We played
a
9-hole match and shook hands on the fifth
hole. But like, it's like a day where I don't need this. Just take a bit off this. Like, give me some like rubbish or something. You know, like all of a sudden the golfing gods, you know, sort of build it in.
Well, I read John Sherman's book, who was on the podcast as well, and one of the things I adopted in that fabled round of Walton Heath is I was quite cold when we played. It wasn't completely the reason, but I just played for the back edge number all day. I was like, there's going to be no harm playing for back edge all day, and if I flush it to the back edge, great.
I think it's a pretty good principle.
Well, I think it's fine. Like middle of the green, back edge.
I'm not trying to
number.
hit it past the pin for the sake of hitting it past the pin, though. But I do think, you know, invariably,
but I think for any
the
sort
average
of
club golfer like us knocks it short of the pin more often than they knock it past the pin.
Well, I think it was a Lou Stagner thing. It might even been John Sherman again. It was on Twitter.
It was Lou Stagner.
Was it Stagner? They're like only 5% of golfers hit past the bit along the
with
green.
any regularity. It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. Because we just don't. We all think we hit the ball 20 yards further than we do, or we think we're going to flush it every time, which we don't. Before we move on to, like, we should talk about actual golf, not just our golf. What's the ambitions for the year?
Yes, I don't know.
What's your current handicap? And it's a vulgar question.
I don't really have a goal around the handicap. No, because I think if I put... Well, this is the thing. This will become an expansive conversation. Because I feel like I would actually... This is almost like therapy. I would like to get to scratch. But I feel like if I was to get to scratch, I could only do it if I started putting in cards.
Supplementary cards?
Yeah.
Which you don't like doing, do you?
Well, I'm not against people that put in supplementary cards. I just feel like if I go from just solely putting cards in when I play medals to then putting supplementaries in and I get to lower number, am I a better golfer? That's the bit that I wrestle with. It was actually
interesting when we had the conversation.
I don't know if that's fair or not.
Well, we had a conversation down at Walton Heath with our friends down at Tatum. I don't want to name them, but we were having this conversation about is it right to put in supplementary cards, and his response was quite interesting because he said, actually, you know, you're cheating the field by not doing it. Because
but I'm not winning net events, you know.
Well,
I'm not.
It was an interesting take, nonetheless.
I'm not shooting 40 points of the weekend very easily.
I know that, but there are people that are, and there are people that are playing way better than their handicap. People playing way worse than the handicap. I actually don't know where I sit on the fence of putting in.
I would argue
cards.
that the people that should be putting in more supplementary cards are, and this is a sweeping generalisation where I've got to be really careful, but I would say there's loads of people off quite high handicappers. I'm not going to call them pot hunters, but there's lots of people who seem to sit off very high handicaps because they may be playing frequently and therefore don't put loads of cards in, and then they just have a good day and they just absolutely clear up. I mean, I've seen some unbelievable net scores winning things this year.
I think we were in Seaton Carew actually recently. We went up and had a meeting up there. I think on the board, the winner of the Stableford was like 47 points.
Yeah, something daft like that.
It was like,
but then you've got the low handicap guys where there's loads of supplementary cards going in. And I feel like when you get down to...
Yeah, but why does it matter?
When you're in the realms of +2, +3 versus a 1 or a 2.
But why does it matter?
So there's loads of things that you can and can't get into at a lower handicap. And
but then arguably they get... Maybe you're right. Maybe they get into these events, but they're not going to do amazingly well if they're.
No, but it's nice to play in them, and it is nice to. It's nice to turn up, isn't it? And I think I'm not against supplementary cards. Observation would be there's a lot of low handicaps who put in a lot of supplementaries, and there's a lot of people who haven't. So now you've got this kind of big variance in low handicaps where it's actually really hard to isolate. Whereas before, I think before WHS, if someone in Britain was a plus numbers, like they were blisteringly
was it
good.
Right? The pre
you're in the
WHS,
point
you
one world.
You couldn't put a card in if you're Cat 1. Is that right?
Pass. No, I think you could.
Could you?
I think you could. You might be referring to the old model, which is where below 5 you had to put in cards from multiple different courses.
Oh, I don't remember.
But even so, you were only coming down by 0.1. So if you were off 0.3 and you shot 3 under, it's like 3 under the standard scratch, let's say, or whatever, you're going down 0.3.
Yeah.
Now you've got like massive like shifts. I don't know. I feel like, but all of that thing, you asked me about handicap. Is handicap a goal? I'm just not sure it really is. I don't know.
Well, if it's not a handicap, then what is it? You need something. Someone's got to drive you. Someone's got to wake you up.
I don't know. I'd like to win something, I guess. I always think getting onto the menu at the annual dinner at Blackwell's quite a nice goal. If you can win something there. I'd quite like to make a good showing, maybe the scratch knockout. Or even just shoot a half respectable score in the club championship. That would probably be quite a good goal. I don't know. I don't feel fiercely competitive. What about you?
In the ilk of Darren Clark, I'm continuing down the inexorable slide towards golfing insignificance. So,
he then won an open. To be fair,
he did. He then won an open. Yeah, he did. After that quote was said about him, but no, I just want to stop the rot. I think I was 6, maybe this time last year. Just kind of gradually been slipping away.
If you play anything like you have last week or so,
yeah,
different game.
But it's not necessarily a handicap. Like you say, it's not a handicap thing either. I used to be mad obsessed with my handicap. It used to be like the real driving factor of my life, and now I'm actually getting to a stage where if someone said you can't play a comp ever again, or you have to resign your handicap, I don't think I'd mind too much as long as I can still play
competitive golf, but I just don't. It's like handicap's only a goal to a certain point, isn't it? Really, and then if you can play in a few things.
I think for me, if someone said the handicap system's just they made a complete mess. It's all everyone's just gonna play off scratch from the rest of time, and that's what golf is. Like, it's just dog eat dog world. I don't think I'd be too upset. Yeah,
like I played with a guy recently. Massive shout out to James, double plateau, top bloke. Now he just puts every card in as a rule of thumb. It's like, that's what I do. That's equally cool. It's like, that's just the way he's like sort of.
See, I like that. I think that's a good way to go.
Every time I play, I put the card in.
Even a new course you've never seen.
He's like, my handicap changes from like 2 months on, like radically. But he's a really good competitive player. Completely whooped me around Blackwell with Persimmon Woods. Really tidy player, but. I think,
but that's also cool. I think the issue
where the frustration comes in on the cards is when it's like targeted supplementaries, and by that I mean like greens are soft, tees are up, cards are going in today. We're going to get some loops in on this.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to talk about without sounding too salty about the whole stuff, because it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And, each to their own. So my ambition, I think, is just get a bit tidier. I'd say I'm a fairly typical, like 9-10 handicapper in so much that I can have 14 really tidy holes, and then I just literally just go missing for 4 holes, which can drastically
and hopefully that comes in 9-hole matches around Hollingwell in the first 4 holes.
But if you, and the same as all people who play off 9-10, you get rid of that. I think again, something comes out of Mark Brody's work. if you get rid of the doubles, that's it. That's pretty much the difference between someone plays off 3 or 4 and someone plays off 8 and 9 is the number of doubles. Everything else is pretty much identical. Birdies, pars, but then a better player turns doubles into bogeys or turns triples into bogeys.
I just think good players don't compound errors. I think that's what it comes down to.
Bruce is really good at that. Like if he's in the trees, like sometimes you'll just be like, yeah, I'm just going to come outside. Like, I'm not going to do anything special.
He just
here.
doesn't compound
just
the
come
error.
out sideways and then he stiffs it and you're like, oh god, that's so annoying.
It's a really good trait.
You can see why he does well in match play because he's just really
he's just
annoying.
very gritty.
Yeah.
Waste management, Phoenix. Verdict.
Yeah.
So this was the first of the. You said elevated. I think it's designated events.
I think they've changed their mind because I had a little Google as to see what it was.
I think they changed it.
Yeah, back in when it was announced, they were elevated events, and since they've now been downgraded, upgraded, regraded to designated events.
Okay.
Not sure why that semantics matters.
I think it's insulting to the Nick Taylors of the world if you call them elevated.
Well,
it's like when
he elevated his game.
Well, yeah.
He is a PGA Tour winner.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, when they actually do make them fully elevated next year, I'm pretty sure he's not actually in the field. If he was starting at whatever he was, 230th in the world or something, he wouldn't actually make it. But not, it's like...
What do you think of the field? Because what is it?
Yeah, it's good. It's nice. It's nice to the best players out.
Does it mean they get...
It's just basically brings out the full
top
stable of
25.
players. Yeah, so it's bringing in the absolute full range of the top players. Well, I've got
bringing
Rory,
the big guns.
Scheffler. Yeah, they're all playing. So, Rahm. It's good, and it's interesting when you see that the leaderboard stacks up when you put them all in the mix. Really, by and large,
Waste management seems to be a tournament that we always talk about. I suppose
he's just a good event, though, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to start with the self-proclaimed greatest show on grass. I mean, the Super Bowl's on grass, the World Cup Finals on grass. I'm not sure how the waste management.
I just think when you get all over it as a marketing headline, you can just run with it, can't you?
I mean, there's quite a lot of good things that happen on grass.
Yeah, you can just run with it.
But yeah, I mean, there were pictures of like coming out on Twitter and stuff of like when they were opening the gates. Did you see this?
Yeah, I mean, it's loopy. But it's become like a part of the pageantry now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's now all over social media every day when they go running in, and there's now people almost timing it. So it's
Jeff Shackelford said something really funny in the quad when he was like,
I'm just digging for it now. It's so good. Here we go. This is it. I've got it now. Now that the paid influence have redocumented the historic tunnel stroll to the millennial golf mecca, aka TPC Scottsdale 16th. And then he goes on and on.
Someone put on Twitter, like at the beginning of the week, with like an aerial photo of the 16th. Is this the best par 3 in the world? It's just the most ridiculous
stuff,
statement. That's a question, I suppose, but most ridiculous question.
He put some brilliant stuff on about the influencers.
He's very dry, isn't he, Jeff? But it kept me engaged. It's more engaged. I think having the designated event, elevated event, whatever we want to call it, kept my interest for longer than most pro golf does. Like it's not. There's no secret on this podcast that we haven't really covered pro golf strongly in the last year or so. We decided to step away from it because there are lots of other podcasts that do it way better than we do. And I've got far more interest in it than we have. But it held my interest nonetheless until Sunday.
Yeah, great. Can I come back to Jeff Shackelford's piece?
Yeah, I can see you giggling away in the corner. Yeah, go ahead.
Featuring an elevated / designated / forced by live field. The old Phoenix Open should provide a compelling finish prior to Super Bowl in nearby Glendale. Ratings will be the same or down. Influencers will move on to their next declarations of the greatest things they've ever been paid to cover. Hilarious.
Yeah, he's very
hilarious
good
stuff. Right, so we've watched the first episode of the Full Swing.
Bouncing around. We're not going to do like a... We're not going to say anything about the waste management. We're just going to say that it had influences and it's got the 16th. Everyone's pissed. Is that it?
We can talk more about it.
We don't
It'll
have to,
been well covered. I mean, I suppose the observation would be how quickly the tide turns and the rhetoric around players. Scheffler, 3 or 4 months ago, could do no wrong. It's just, unbelievable year. But then once Rahm and Rory just turned on some serious form over the last sort of 3 or 4 months, it was almost like he wasn't in the field, and then it was like, oh shit, actually he's right at the top, he's going to tear away with us.
That just goes into the strength and depth of it all, as anyone turns it on. And what Rory and Rahm have been doing in the last sort of 2 months, 3 months is genuinely miraculous, because the consistency of the high performance.
It's absurd.
But they're all perfectly capable of going mega low. I mean, that thing that Michael Verity put out about Rahm's handicap.
It's absurd.
Absolutely bonkers. He saw on, those of you haven't seen it, look on Twitter. It went viral, but he put this tweet out where he calculated John Rahm's handicap to be like minus 2,000 or something like that.
But if you were taking on John Rahm at Blackwell off the whites, bearing in mind, even if he's never looked at the golf course, I've got no idea what the guy would shoot. It's absolutely fascinating to me that.
Well,
I just don't know, of all the stuff there in the influencer world, that is exactly the content we need.
Yeah.
We need to see how a 6,000 yard softish Parkland golf course would hold up to the world's best players.
He was on the Foreplay pod. There was some stuff that was going out again on Twitter and Instagram and all the other TikToks that go on in the world. But he was talking about the distance debates. I don't know what you guys are talking about. We're just fitter and stronger and better athletes. And yeah, I get it to a degree, but the tech has just exploded. The ball goes. I mean, give him a Balata, and you wouldn't be saying he's fitter, stronger, and faster than everyone that's ever lived, because they'd learn how to hit it. Obviously,
they wouldn't take pound on it like that, would they?
You can't pound the way that he hits the golf ball, that sort of banana.
It's not really. Thing. Yeah, it's not a forgiving shape with a Balata.
No, I mean, there's no denying that the tech has. I don't know why it's sort of gone on that rampage, but what would be interesting, like you say, is what they're doing to counteract these blokes being massive is they're making golf courses massive, and they basically just play into the hands of the really long hitters. What would be interesting is just put a load of good players on a really short golf course, like a really short golf course, like a 6-4.
Yeah, not like Formby Ladies short.
Still be interesting, especially Formby Ladies, because if they went for the green, they'd be absolutely knackered in the heather.
It really would. It really would be interesting.
Formby Ladies is Formby Ladies is a perfect actual golf course to put them on and say, what would you do? Because you can't drive it in the wrong places because you will lose a golf ball.
Yeah, would they want to go 300? This would really put a fire under Lou Stagner's feet, wouldn't it? All of a sudden, and Scott Fawcett, when it's would you rather be 300 yards up but buried in the heather, or would you rather be
100 yards
one
away,
up 180 but in the middle of the fairway?
Because I don't care how good you are.
I think you would see there. I think you would have to see them tapping it away a little bit.
They'd have to.
Yeah, there's no way you would see them.
I'd love to see a pro event around Formby Ladies. I think it'd be amazing. There's a couple of par fives. You could actually
make it. Yeah, you could make it like a co-sanctioned mixed field event as well.
Oh God, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Would actually be a great event. What's Formby Ladies, 5-6, something like that? 5-4?
Not even. I don't think.
I don't think it's much shorter, mate.
But that would be.
I mean, some of the past stuff might be irrelevant. I think holes 2 that are, what is it, 420 yard par 5, I think.
Yeah, you'd have to, don't worry about that. Go back to the old method, just do score.
Yeah, you got Jim Nance there declaring double eagles all day.
Interesting, right, okay, interesting. Segue. Full Swing documentary. We've seen a sneak peek, comes out Wednesday. What is interesting about that, only because you just said double eagle, and is
terminology on the screen.
Terminology. They write what the things are.
But hang on. Yeah, okay, go on. Continue.
It was interesting to watch it. For the first episode, obviously I won't give a whole ton away, but it basically is...
It's publicly available.
Well, it's on an unlisted link, but yeah. If you get it, it's publicly. If they're sent to you, it's publicly available. But it's basically centered around Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas, and I don't know. Like as it goes on, they're kind of explaining golf terminology. Like this is what an eagle is, and this is what a par is, and golf tournaments are played over 4 days, and there's a cut after 2 days, and if you're in the final of field, that's when it really matters. And if its score is tied coming down on Sunday, they have a playoff, and there's a lot of explaining. Now, I'm a person that absolutely loves the Formula One Drive to Survive. Love it. It converted me to Formula One. I wasn't a Formula One fan beforehand. I am now, and it was because of that documentary. I'm fairly open with that. I thought my thoughts on the Full Swing documentary were, it was a bit confused at who it was trying to target. The hardened golf fan, or someone who's never watched golf.
Yeah. I'm not sure I fully buy into this, no.
Because I don't think... The thing about the Drive to Survive, the stories
That's
within...
really easy for you to say because you knew nothing about Formula One, and yet...
No, but the stories within the teams were interesting enough.
And yet you know a little about lots of things in golf.
Yeah. But the thing about Drive to Survive, the stories intra-team and inter-team are very, very interesting. The stories between the golfers aren't that interesting. So it's not like, I'm not going to be, as someone who's just coming to golf, as someone who's never seen golf, I wouldn't be like, God, those blokes are so interesting. I need to...
Yeah,
really
but it's a different sport, isn't it? I mean, the problem is if you keep comparing, and this is why I take exception with this need to keep comparing golf to Formula One, because the two sports couldn't be farther from each other, you know?
I get that, but what I think, golf is big enough that I think that documentary could have stood on its own 2 feet, assuming that people knew what a par was.
Well, no, but that's the whole point, because if you don't watch golf and you knew nothing about golf, how are you going to follow along a series where they keep talking about this concept of a bloody par?
Yeah, but I didn't know much about Formula One. You just kind of pick it up along the way.
Yeah, but there is loads of context setting in there.
Well, not
if you go back and watch the first series of Drive to Survive, they'll be saying, "Oh, qualification's really important," and you'll be like, and you know what they're talking about with the tyres, and then someone will come in and be like, "When you have to select a certain amount of tyres for the weekend." I don't even understand the rules, but the point is,
but you're very passionate about it.
Well, no, but like they will be doing this hand holding with you, but. You know, because of your own arrogance, you'll have thought...
Ignorance or arrogance?
I prefer my one. But because of your own
because you're arrogant. Ironically.
No, but because of your own ignorance, you sort of like... You're assuming that that's talking to your level on the F1 stuff, but because you know the stuff about golf, it's like...
Maybe.
That'd be my take. I know what you mean. I thought... You know, look, I really don't think this needs blow by blow. I think, you know, this is a Netflix documentary series. People can actually make their mind up on it.
Yeah, of course
I thought it was highly entertaining, easy watch. Yeah, it's always going to be good, wasn't it? Because I really enjoyed some of the tennis stuff. The one they did with the tennis that stopped. I think the second part comes out.
I didn't watch that one. First Serve, I think it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Like, you know, episode 1 with... Kyrgios, you know, that's class, and it's the same sort of thing. And again, there's not the same narrative to buy into with tennis. Kind of what I think you're saying there with the golf stuff.
It's just I think
there's a bit of contrived stuff in there, like, you know, JT, you know, playing Spieth ringing JT,
yeah.
And like, you know, but I think, you know, I quite like the sort of stuff behind the scenes and all the sort of trailer stuff with. Whether it's Poulter throwing stuff in the locker room or, you know, I think that will be quite nice to see. I mean...
But I think that we are in a period of professional golf where we're kind of lacking really big personalities. Or the personalities are being restrained somewhat from the top, you know. Until they're allowed to just kind of like completely let go and be... as nasty as they want to be, or act however they want to act. It just doesn't feel there's going to be enough personality-wise and storyline-wise to keep me like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm not watching this for something I didn't know.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that either. I don't know, just maybe
One
being
thing
a
about
contrarian here. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not hanging out loads with Ian Poulter, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm when they're not on the course, So, I agree with you. Like the personalities in professional golf are quite stale and quite polished, and they're very similar, aren't they? Really, I think they all say the right thing, and they all go about the business, and they all wear the shirt sponsors, and that's great. Whereas, maybe this will actually kind of give quite a nice little sneak peek into some of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean,
it's quite cool seeing the gym afterwards, wasn't it? With the and they're all in there, and they've got their trainers in there, and it's like,
I couldn't quite work out.
That's a side we never see.
Was that after the round they were doing that?
Yeah.
I couldn't quite work out when that was.
Yeah, so that sort of side of it is quite cool, and I think the more they double down on that, for me, is going to be interesting. There's always got to be a bit where this is going to have to be quite broad. Really well. I thought it was really nicely put together, though. That the way it's constructed around the whole Southern Hills thing, that was just, really nice.
I think they got very lucky there.
And they were they. I don't know.
Well, because
maybe if they film everything, they probably just get it back.
But I think they picked a few players to follow over the season, and they were following him, and that happened, and it's like, oh,
maybe
that's brilliant.
Maybe if they luck out on this, like with the whole series,
I think they got quite lucky, and I think that's kind of how these things go, isn't it? When you can't back up everybody. So
yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how much Liv just gets.
The thing about Liv,
the danger is they could, and I suspect they won't.
I think they will. I think they have to.
If it is literally 75% Liv, that would be a shame. Because when you watch the Southern Hills, you think that was just a great tournament.
But I think they'd miss a trick if they didn't, because that is where the personality is. Like those people, some of those blokes genuinely don't like each other. And I think if they try to block that out, I think they'd be missing a real. I'd love to see what they're saying behind the scenes, and I'd love to see someone. Oh yeah, I was offered this much, and I just said no, fuck it, I'm not doing it. That would really interest me. So I wonder whether they'll do it.
Time will tell. They'll release it in one tranche, won't they?
I don't know how they're releasing all of them on Wednesday.
Presume so. The tennis, they released up to a point, up to Wimbledon, and then it stopped. Well, it would be interesting.
Looking forward to it. At least it's the one positive thing is it's going to be hopefully attracting more people to golf and get more eyes on it.
I watched it.
Hopefully,
maybe one to hit golf balls.
Some more money gets into the PGA. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Just like really elevate some purses there.
I think they need to. That'd be good for them. But yeah, it's all going on. When we got Riv next week with Tiger back.
Yeah, I mean, that's another designated event.
Or elevated. It's got some elevated
Or
teeth.
forced by Liv.
/ influencer promoted event. Riv's always good. So it'd be nice to see. I'm looking forward to it.
Should be superb. So Thomas, closing events 2023.
I mean, we categorize, for those of you who don't know, we categorize our podcasts and we put them into sort of categories on the website. This one is going to have to go into ramblings. This is going to go into ramblings. Yeah. This is a mad ramble.
Well, I think events. We felt. I think genuinely you can have too much heavy podcasting. Sometimes something light and easy.
Yeah,
like it's too easy to just not chat, and sometimes the gold is buried in the ramblings. Or the shit. Or not. Can we talk about the events 2023?
Yeah, we've announced our first three, which
starting in April,
chronological order.
Masters Friday
at Blackwell, which is a meet. It's going to be fairly no frillsy. Lunch, golf. See how it goes.
We're having lunch at Blackwell. I mean, cool flyer. I mean, I know I did that, but really cool. That photo of Bobby Jones at Blackwell the day after he won the Open at Hoylake, 1930, his Grand Slam year. And we're going to have a party on Masters Friday, which obviously he went on to design with the good doctor himself in Augusta, Georgia.
Which we've been very lucky that filled up in a day.
Yeah, I think we've been lucky because, I mean, obviously the events are very popular. I think we have put them out solely on newsletter these. So if people haven't received a copy of the newsletter, send us an email and and we can send the details to you.
We are balloting for it.
Yeah, balloting. I mean, like you say, they're filling up quick. So we've got
all of
Masters
them are.
Friday, spring meeting then.
Another big Mackenzie mixer.
Mm-hmm. All Woodley and Moortown.
Or Woodley Moortown. In that order? No, Moortown or Woodley.
Moortown day one, dinner at Moortown overnight, and then all Woodley on the next day.
Which is off the back of last year's spring meeting, which was Prince's Royal St George's. Which was
the Mackenzie stuff's crazy up there when you think about it.
Yeah, it's weird that there's so few Mackenzie courses, kind of Birmingham and down. Worcester's one, but there's not a whole ton. But you go kind of north of Nottingham, and you start to get replete with Mackenzies.
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, there's tons up there. But the fact that, All Woodley was obviously, I think it's fairly well known that was his first design. The club, he was involved with the membership there and said, look, I think I can do this course design malarkey. And the club sort of wrote down to Harry Colton, said, come up and check this guy's not completely gaga. And he said, no, this is really good, let him keep going. But then Moortown that follows, he's proved himself over the road as being, the real McCoy, yeah. And to fundraise for the course, he builds the 10th hole, Gibraltar, and then allows people to come and see it and play it, and takes donations for the full course build off the back of it, and off you go. Yeah,
crowdfunding.
Crazy, great stories. But like the fact those two clubs are so close to each other, I mean, having an event there is just going to be.
For those of you who don't know, they're genuinely like 1 mile away.
Yeah, nothing, absolutely nothing. And then your little passion project.
Yeah, the Retro Roundup.
Yeah, which is June, 16th of June.
Yep, it's mid-June. It's going to be on a really nice, warm June day in the sunshine in Minchinhampton, in the old course of Minchinhampton, on the Common. And it's basically persimmons and blades and the softest ball you can find.
Any nostalgic golf equipment.
Just
some people are going to probably bring hickory.
We're not going to be carbon dating your clubs, but it's just kind of we don't want anything with a cavity, pretty much. And if it's just kind of like anything pre-Tiger, really, that's what we're looking for. And what we want to do ideally is create a community around the nostalgia. So set up a little WhatsApp group with people as they're collecting their clubs, and like there's loads of people we know that like are really into that scene and they love vintage blades. I mean, James Day is just another level, but there's loads. And hickory golf is another, this is going to be perfectly applicable to anyone who wants to play with hickories and
anything pre-1997.
Which is kind of why we.
So it still gives you probably 300 or 400 years worth of clubs you could potentially use. You've only eliminated the last 25.
Yeah, we wanted to do it at Minchinhampton specifically because it's bunkerless, it's quite open, it's very forgiving, but very tricky around the greens. It's just a really
good par 3 holes,
some great par 3s, and it's kind of just a good opportunity to get probably the lowest price event that we've ever done, £35 to enter. And it's going to be, I mean,
£35 asterisk. You will probably need to go to eBay and locate your best set of vintage blades. Pick these things up for nothing.
Yeah, I will. But loads of you golfers will have sets that your mum or dad played with that have been in the garage since you were born, and they'll be there. I know that a good friend of mine who signed up to the event, learnt with these blades from 1950, and they're still in the garage somewhere. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll just dust them off and go." That's
perfect.
This is exactly what it's meant to be.
And those are our events, literally for the first half of the year.
That's just until June, and we're hoping to fill up the back end of the year as well. But if you are interested, there is always the ability to, we are balloting them. There was always the ability to put your name in the hat. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a big year coming up.
Any closing thoughts on the Swilcan burn?
No.
Nothing to add.
I think they did the wrong thing and did the right thing, and now it's just a thing.
It was great. It was great mea culpa,
It was
wasn't
worth
it?
because we had nothing to talk about, so it was worth it for
great.
2 days. Because what I did notice though,
I just love how quickly
is
they were
how-
like, yeah, this
how the
isn't
golf
right.
Twitter sphere pounced on it so quickly, but how there were two very, very different camps of spelling. SWILKEN and SWILCAN, and they were like big camps.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's
Divisions.
right. I think it's CAN, but
It brought the live and PGA community together.
it did. Yeah. you had
If there's
Patrick Reed
if there
and
was
Rory
one
arm in
massive
arm,
success,
arm in arm with their arms in the air in
candlelit
disgust.
vigils, they came together for what was
And
quite a
I must say,
special
some of the
moment.
memes were quite spectacular.
Yeah, superb.
Were really quite funny. But
Ken Brown's always late to the party on Twitter. Have you noticed? Ken Brown's like operating on a 2-day lead time on Twitter.
has he got,
He's
has he
like
got
blows
lag,
up
Twitter
on
lag?
Sunday, and then it like Wednesday morning he's like turbocharged on these things. He did
Yeah.
something the other day or something else. But anyway, look, we digress. As you say, it was brilliant entertainment. No harm done.
It
And
was good entertainment. I almost think they were
I
like...
love the fact the speediness of it on Monday was like
I
get
actually
the
think
diggers
someone
out,
there
or
was
issue a
going-
statement.
I reckon someone there actually at the St Andrews Links Trust. But we must say, I mean, this for anyone who knows their eggs, like the amount of bashing the RNA we're getting is absolutely nothing to do with the RNA.
St Andrews Links Trust.
St Andrews Links Trust. I actually think the Links Trust. Someone said, "Do you know what would be a laugh if we stick a patio in front of the Swilcan Bridge and see how long we can get away with it?" It was almost like that. It was good fun. So it's all been done now. It's all rectified. So.
Until next time.
Yeah, well, I kind of apologise for the pod. Well, it's just been us rambling, but thank you very much if you've listened to this point. There are no drivers on offer if you got through to this one, but thank you very much for listening. And until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.